So if we just take a quick look at our navbar on the BootStrap website, we can see that it's displayed nicely across the top of the page here. And if we shrink the page down, we can actually see it snapping and adjusting as it's viewed on the different screen devices and hitting its breakpoints, until we finally hit the smaller screens and the navigation is collapsed into its own button using the 3-bar button. Now this is the standard practice for any navbar that's created via BootStrap, and we'll be creating something similar to this now. Okay, so if we jump back over to our index page, the first thing we need to do is access our navbar classes. Now these are actually predefined within the BootStrap CSS file, so we can simply access these and it will apply the styles we need and display our navbar as we need it on our page. So first we add our div into the page, and then we start by adding our classes. So the first class we add is navbar. Then we add the navbar default, which adds the default stylings to our navbar. Then we add our positioning. In this case we want it fixed at the top, so we have navbar-fixed-top. Next we add our accessibility tag of role and give that a name of navigation. Then what we do is just close that div off. Now that's actually our classes set up. And now what we need to do is add our container, which is going to house all of our content for our navigation. So we have the div class equals container, and then we just close that off. Nice and simple. Now then what we need to do is add our navbar header class. So we add the div class equals navbar-header, and then we just close that div off. And if we just jump over to our PSD file, we can actually see the first item in our navbar is our logo. So to add this, we want to add our logo into its own div so we can access this and add the stars to it later individually if we need to. Because the odds are we'll need to make some changes to this in terms of positioning. So we want to add this div into our navbar header that we just created. And we actually give that a class of logo, and then simply we just close that div off. Then in this div we actually add our image with the image tag, and then we just find the location. Now we saved our logo into the image folder and gave this a name of logo.png. So we add the img/logo.png. Now normally a logo is linked back to the home page or the top of the page, so we just simply add in the A tag around this div that we've just created, which houses our logo. So we'll give this A tag a brand of navbar-brand. And then we'll add the actual link in with this href. Now here I'll give the link of a hashtag, because this always defaults to the top of the page that you're on, which is actually what we need. But obviously you can link this to your home page or whatever you like, especially if this is sitting within an already made website. Then I'll just close off that A tag after the logo div. So if we save that off and check our page, we can see the logo has been applied, but because it's got a transparent background and it's wide, you can't quite see it clearly, but it is there. And if we shrink the page down, we can see that it all displays okay. Now obviously it doesn't look too good at the moment, but we'll soon be adding in our styles to make it look a lot better. Now next we can add our collapsed navigation button. So staying within our navbar header class, we add our button tag, and we give this a type of button. Then we add our class, which is navbar-toggle. Then we add the data toggle attribute, which we set to collapse. And then finally for this tag we add our data target, now which we haven't actually set up yet as we have no content for our navbar or our collapsed navbar to display. But we'll give this a class name of .navbar-collapse, and we'll access this later. But first we just need to close the button off. Now within our button we need to add our 3 bars or lines. So first in our button we add the span and give this a class of sr-only, and give this a value of toggle navigation. Then we close the span off. Now this is purely for accessibility reasons and assist people using screen readers, etc. Now we need to add our first line in, so we add another span and give it a class of icon bar. Then we simply close that span off. Now that adds our first line in, so all we need to do is copy and paste this span in 2 more times under the first one we've just made, and that will make up our 3 bars. Then if we save that off and refresh our page, we can see on the large screens it actually looks no different, but if we shrink the page down we can see our toggle navigation button view. Now obviously if you click on it there's no content in there, so it won't display anything. So now what we need to do is just add our navigation options in. So if we go back to our index file, we actually need to create a new div under our navbar header div. So we give this a class of navbar-collapse, which actually connects us to our button up the top here because we gave that a data target of the same class name. Then finally we add the class of collapse, and then we just close that div off. Now our navigation is actually added within a UL or unordered list tag. So we add the UL tag in, and we'll give that a class of nav, and then navbar nav. And then we just close that UL tag off. Now all our navigation options are going to be stored within a list, so we add our first list tag in with the li, and this will actually be our first navigation element. And as it will be a link, we also need to add in our A tag. Now if we just go back and check our PSD file, we can see that the first one in the list is actually our home option. So we simply add the href in as a hashtag, as this will bring us back to the top of the same page, and then we simply give that a name of home. Then we close off our link or our A tag, and then we close off our list. Now we can simply copy and paste our next navigation elements under this. So if we just copy it down 5 times, I believe it is. Then we just simply need to change the names. So if we just check what our next one's called, it's photo app. So if we change the link on this one to photo and change the text to photo app. Then check the next one, it's design. So we change the link to design and then the name to design. Then the next one is community. So we'll change the link to community and then change the text to community. And the final one is download. So we'll just do the same again. So if we actually save that off and refresh our page, we can see our navigation options are actually displayed nicely. And if we shrink the page down, we can see our toggle button appear. And if we press this, we can see all our navigation appears as we link to it with the navbar collapse class. So we can see that our navigation is almost ready to be styled. However, you may notice that the navigation options actually appear next to our logo in our page, rather than on the right hand side as seen in the Photoshop file. So to sort this, we can simply go back into our code and add a class to the UL tag. We can simply add the positioning class of navbar-right to our unordered list. Then if we save that off and refresh our page, we can see it looks a lot better on the large screens. And if we shrink the page down, we should get to our toggle button. And within that, our navigation appears all fine. Excellent. So that's actually all our navbar elements set. And next we'll move on to adding our styles to make it look how it's actually seen within the Photoshop design, which we will go on to do in our next lecture.